Danielle settled into her seat, exhaling deeply as she let the soft glow of the screen pull her in. The movie was well into its middle act, the jokes landing just right, making her chuckle despite the exhaustion clinging to her from another grueling night shift at the hospital. This was her ritual, escaping into a midday showing where the world was quiet and she could finally unwind. The theater was nearly empty, just as she had hoped. A few scattered viewers sat in the distance, their faces illuminated by the screen. For the first time in hours, Danielle felt at ease. Then the doors creaked open. She barely glanced over as 5 young white adults entered, their footsteps shuffling down the aisle. They had plenty of options, rows upon rows of empty seats, but instead, they headed straight for the row behind her and sat down. Danielle tensed slightly, but kept her focus on the screen. Maybe it was nothing. For the first few minutes, everything was fine. Then, a nudge against the back of her seat. Danielle barely reacted. It could have been an accident, someone shifting, adjusting their legs. But then another push, firmer this time. Her fingers curled slightly over the armrests. Silence behind her. No laughter, no whispered remarks, just the steady presence of someone sitting too close in an almost empty theater. Then, the pressure didn't stop. The young woman behind her pressed her foot firmly against the back of Danielle's seat and pushed. Not a sudden shove, but a slow, deliberate force. A creeping insistence that continued until Danielle found herself sliding forward, her balance tipping slightly. She steadied herself, planting her feet against the floor, resisting the push. A quiet stillness settled in the air. No one behind her laughed or made a comment. Danielle inhaled deeply. She had choices. She could turn around and ask them to stop. She could walk out and find the manager. But what would that solve? The movie would be interrupted. The moment would turn into something bigger than it needed to be. Instead, she did the only thing she felt was right. With calm, deliberate ease, she stood, adjusted her purse, and walked 4 rows forward. She sat down, keeping her shoulders back, her gaze ahead. She would finish this movie in peace. As the film continued, she allowed herself to settle again, breathing deeply. The jokes were still funny, the story was still unfolding, and then she heard a voice from behind her. A quiet, almost confused whisper. Why did she move? A pause. Then, the young woman who had been behind her replied, her voice low but distinct. Because Danielle didn't wait to hear the rest. She enjoyed the rest of the film. Her strategy kept her dignity and basically destroyed a possible outcome that could cause her potential suffering, shame, or possibly ruin. If these people were bold enough to target her, how far would they go for whatever intent they might have had? When the movie ended, Danielle quietly went to her car. She thought again, and then slowly resumed her life.